Hi, this is Gwen Foster. I want to talk about environmental toxins and why it is important to try to live a toxin free life if possible. In America, it is just impossible to avoid toxins completely. I use like a natural pesticide that's essential oils basically for my house. I don't use flea and tick or those kind of medications on my dogs. I don't vaccinate my dogs or didn't vaccinate my kids once I knew better. I would not personally get an injection or vaccination for any amount of money. I would just not go to a country if they, required vaccines. But there's a lot of other stuff that people may or may not be aware of. And really, what I want to talk about in this video is heavy metals. So heavy metals, like I had 7 amalgam fillings in my mouth that I had taken out in about 2007, and the great books by Dr. Hal Huggins. One of my favorite books by him is Uninformed Consent. There's also a great book by him called MS. He himself had MS, and that led him on this whole discovery of how dental work makes people sick. He talked about cancers in dental work. He talked about autoimmune disorders in dental work. He has really some great books out there. He had a clinic in Colorado Springs. He's deceased now, but he also has a clinic in Mexico where people could go and get biological dentistry done. But not only in dental work, but also in vaccines. Thimerosal is a mercury preservative. There's, in our groundwater, there can be heavy metals. In tobacco and marijuana, there's heavy metals, especially cadmium. You may not know this, but tobacco and marijuana, where they grow, they have a certain quality to them that's a little bit like dandelion, is that they soak up the metals from the ground. So a lot of times there can be like high levels of cadmium in tobacco or arsenic or wherever. So if these are grown, let's say in Colorado, which a lot are, in an area where there was mining in the past, then all that arsenic and cadmium and mercury or lead or tin or aluminum, it would be in the soil, and it is concentrated in those plants. So when people smoke them, they're getting a good dose of heavy metal poisoning. And this can be determined or verified by hair analysis for heavy metals. And sometimes people will have symptoms of heavy metal poisoning, and it's not just from smoking. Chicken, the non-organic chicken that we buy at Costco and Sam's and the grocery store, and we go to a restaurant, we have a chicken, some kind of chicken dinner or fried chicken, that has arsenic in it. The arsenic is used to plump and make the white meat whiter. If you saw a natural chicken, it's actually very small and kind of beige. It's only the chickens that almost look like, these chickens are huge, and these are pumped with arsenic before they're slaughtered. So we're getting arsenic there. We're getting also heavy metals and chemicals in swimming pools, hot tubs and jacuzzis, our tap water. And depending on where you live, the levels can be quite high in groundwater and also well water. So just because someone drinks well water doesn't always mean it's safe. There can be additional problems. I want to read a few of the heavy metal potential symptoms. And I see these a lot, like a lot. So let's start with mercury. If you have more than 5 of these, you might consider having hair analysis done to see what your heavy metal load is. For mercury, and this is very common with kids with learning disorders and also ADD, ADHD type situations, besides other possibilities that could be going on there. But anyway, mercury affects neurological symptoms, behavioral, emotional disturbances, depression, anxiety, hyperactivity, tremors, seizures, palpitations, that's heart palpitations, loss of coordination, excess salivation, a metal taste in the mouth, eczema, allergies, especially to wheat, gums that bleed easily, loose teeth, and sometimes the teeth can be loose, especially the ones that have mercury in them, constriction of the bronchi or lungs, skin disorders like blistering, and it's a nerve toxin found in pesticides, herbicides, medications, cosmetics, hair dyes, processed grains, dental fillings, batteries, petroleum products, and in groundwater. So it's like all around us. If you, like, I'm in Houston, we have Lyndale, we have these big refineries, we have Dow Chemical. They're putting out a ton of heavy metal residue, including arsenic and these other things, like all over the place. I also want to read Arsenic. This is out of Hannah Kroger's Help One Another book. I see arsenic a lot because of how much chicken people eat, but arsenic can also be in groundwater. Arsenic is used in blasting and mining, so it's common in mountainous areas that might be quite beautiful, like Tennessee, Colorado, Alaska, can have very high levels of arsenic in the water. So the symptoms for arsenic can be a constant backache, brittle nails and hair, chiropractic adjustments that don't hold, so someone has to keep going to the chiropractor, a garlic odor to their breath, a soreness under the collarbone like here, or soreness in the groin like if you press it, a metal taste in the mouth, constriction of the throat or muscles, difficulty swallowing, hot burning sensation anywhere in the body. So they can have hot burning eyes, throat, chest, but even just sometimes their skin, enlarged tonsils, change in white blood cell count, hair loss, weakness, and nervousness. What I've seen also with arsenic is that people will not tolerate heat very well, and their skin will be naturally very red. So if you look at someone, and I see this more in men than women, but I've been at restaurants and places where they just look red, and it's not like a sunburn, it's like red. And that's usually that could be a heart issue, but more likely it's an arsenic issue. I met a man that did work at one of the refineries in Deer Park, and he came in, he couldn't tolerate heat. He literally could not be outside of air conditioning. He could not be outside. He had to literally but go very quickly from his office to his truck. The truck had to be started and the AC running, and then he had to like go in the garage and go into his house. Like, he could not sit outside. He couldn't deal with heat at any level, even at 80 or 85 degrees. This is a very typical arsenic situation. He had known he had arsenic poisoning because it had been determined 10 years earlier, but the doctors had told him that the arsenic would eventually just work its way out of his system, which I don't think it did. So arsenic, it settles in the tissues, and it can affect someone for many years. I've had actually some pretty interesting arsenic stories that I won't go into in this video, but let's just say 10 and 20 years after the exposure, the arsenic was still affecting the person. So if you're going to eat chicken, eat organic. It's not a good idea to eat Chick-fil-A every day, or a chicken sandwich from somewhere, or chicken nuggets like Tyson. Just not a good idea, because that chicken is not organic and it is loaded with hormones and chemicals, which I would say is not good. Then there's lead, and lead and copper are pretty common as well. They outlawed lead for a reason, but what I think is interesting about lead is I was at Walmart in Colorado, and I was looking at some kind of cheap plates, like colorful cheap plates that you can take on a picnic or put on your patio furniture. And I picked up one of the plates, and on the back there was this label that said, "This plate contains lead, which the state of California has determined is not safe." And I'm like, okay, so just in California, lead's a bad idea. I couldn't believe that a plate in this day and age would have lead in it. Which means your food you put on it is going to have lead. I mean, what are they thinking? And I thought it was also interesting that if it wasn't for the state of California, there wouldn't even be a label on it at all that said there was lead. And it made me think, I mean, I know this is going to age me, but it made me think about a Barnaby Jones episode from like a million years ago, where there was this little boy that carried around his favorite cup, and he had these weird medical symptoms. And they finally figured out that the cup was like ceramic and painted, and had lead paint in the cup, and it was causing him brain damage. And I thought back to that, and I thought, why? I mean, there shouldn't be lead in anything that we're putting in our food, or putting our food on, or putting in our mouth. But I wanted to read some of the lead symptoms, because you may think you don't have exposure to lead because lead paint has been outlawed. But I've even heard on some of these shows, these mystery murder things, where even people recently, had their child die because they were picking paint off of a fence and eating it, because lead in paint has a sweet taste. And the reason kids want to eat it is because it's sweet. So it sounds weird, like I know, but if there's a sweetness to it, they'll just pick it off and eat it if it's like in an older home, which again has been outlawed, but it's still around, just like copper pipes, and that causes different issues. But anyway, so on lead, the symptoms can be lack of willpower, hyperactivity or exhaustion, behavioral problems, suicide tendencies, especially in children, allergies, legs that ache. Like, they'll say you're having growing pains, but it's actually a lot of times lead and lead poisoning or lead contamination. Difficulty concentrating, fatigue, irritability, abdominal pain, personality changes, central nervous system disorders, anemia, headaches, women that are tired in the morning, men that are bitchy, general brain dysfunction, general weakness, and it can contribute to mental retardation. Lead accumulates primarily in the brain, nerves, bones, liver, kidneys, and spleen. And the lead molecule is the exact same size as the calcium molecule. So if you have lead poisoning, you will have also the calcium deficiency symptoms that I covered in a separate video. It's found in gas vapors, auto exhaust, old paint, hair dyes, tin cans, insecticides, medications, and cigarette smoke. Also in bleach, flour, and sugar products. Pharmaceutical drugs are often bound with lead and mercury. So we're getting this stuff all the time. And if you have very many of those symptoms, I have little kids that have headaches. Their legs ache. They have the hyperactivity. Their brain doesn't work right. They can't concentrate. That could just be lead. And, what are they doing? They're saying, oh, here, take some Ritalin, take some Adderall, take some drugs. And that's not fixing the underlying cause. The underlying cause is possibly metal toxicity. And like I said, you can go online, you can find hair analysis kits that will test you or your child. All you do is you go back and you take a little bit of hair from an undisturbed spot that hasn't been colored or dyed, and you send it into the lab, and they send you a report of what your heavy metal load is. And it's a super good thing to do. And then you can work towards whatever you need to do, whether it's getting the dental fillings replaced or changing your lifestyle, going to organic. There's lots of things you can do, and I'll put some information below this video. All right, thanks a lot. Have a great day. Like and subscribe.